Greetings fellow Whovians and welcome to Timey Wimey Review. Today marks the 30th anniversary of the VHS release of the second Doctor story, The Tomb of the Cybermen. And if any of you young'uns don't know what a VHS is, well, it's this. This story was originally released 30 years ago on video. Might not seem as important now with this story easily available on DVD and streaming services, but this particular story, was once lost for over 20 years after its original broadcast back in September 1967. Just in case you don't know, the BBC in their infinite wisdom decided that a lot of their black and white material programmes such as Play of the Week and Dad's Army, as well as Doctor Who, they thought that no one really wants to watch repeats of these. They're just getting in the way of storage. We just can't keep them anymore. So let's take them and destroy them. And sadly, this story was one of them. However, thanks to a dedicated group of people, they managed to recover this four-part adventure back in 1991 when they retrieve it from Hong Kong of all places. And when news did break out to the fans on Doctor Who magazine that this story is back from extinction, this was like one of the holy grails of stories, especially for a Cyberman story. Think about it from like the 60s. We don't have that many in completion, or if anything, this boasts all of its completion, I think. You think of like the moon base and the invasion, they have certain episodes missing, but Tomb of the Cybermen, it's back in all its glory and it is just held to such high regard. Does it still have that same prestige? Well, please hit the subscribe button as I review The Tomb of the Cybermen. Just in case you don't know the plot, the second Doctor, Jamie, and recent addition to the Tardis crew, Victoria, arrive on the planet Telos, where a group of archaeologists are on an expedition to find the last resting place of the near-extinct Cybermen. However, there is a traitor amongst the group with secret ambitions of their own to resurrect the Silver Giants in a quest for dominant power. This four-part adventure is the opening story to Season 5 of classic Doctor Who and is home to a number of firsts. One of them being it's the first time that we get to see the Cyber Controller. And along with the other Cybermen here, they look stunning, terrifying and dominant. And it's such an iconic moment in Doctor Who history when all the Cybermen come out of their tombs, especially with that classic Cybermen 60s soundtrack that we did hear in the firstly in the story The Moon Base, and they use it here in Tomb of the Cybermen, and it looks great. Like I said, it just all the build up of them coming out of the tombs. The huge sets of them coming down the stairs as well, because that must have been terrifying to do in the Cyberman costume. And then you open the big heavy door, and then just crouched is the Cyber Controller rising up over everyone, including the Cybermen as well, with the massive giant brain that he has. And yeah, uttering the lines after Klieg just fails to reason with them. It ends with the "You belong to us," the Cyber Controller, sorry. "You belong to us. You shall become like us." It's just a classic iconic moment, a great cliffhanger as well. I like that the Tomb of the Cybermen was more of a loose sequel to the Moon Base, where the Moon Base story is kind of more based on the siege invasion plot, where here this is something a bit more new, a bit more refreshing. This is just survival of the cyber race and kind of expanding on the lore of the Cybermen, where the Cyber Controller was kind of a bit more sort of confident and arrogant of these foolish humans that have gone through all the traps laid out by the Cybermen to basically harness the intelligence of the human race, where the best of the best will resurrect them only for them to come out and just dominate. And yeah, basically it's just a survival for the Cybermen, especially for the Cyber Controller. He's just they're just hell-bent on this, you shall be like us, we must survive, we need to survive. This is the first time that we also see the Cybermats, and they're horrible looking. They just remind me of like metal wood lice. They're just all over the place, and then they got these weird bug eyes. which kind of looks a bit out of place for the rest of the Cybermat design. And I don't know really what they're there for, but it's cool to see, I suppose. Another first is we get a little bit more of the backstory to the Doctor. It's announced here that he is 450 years old, and he talks a little bit more about his time on his home planet. Obviously, Gallifrey's not been named just yet in this story. And yeah, speaking of our main trio, yeah, they were great together, and it was nice to have a really good scene between the second Doctor and Victoria, because Victoria was pretty much the damsel in distress. She didn't really have much to sort of contribute in the previous story, The Power of the Daleks, and here it's just nice to have that moment with the Doctor talking about Victoria's father, who got killed in the previous story. And yeah, it's just a really nice sort of calming moment from the rest of the action that's going on in this story. And yeah, if I had to choose, I prefer the dynamics between the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe as part of a trio later on in the stories compared to Victoria. Victoria is too much of a sort of was just used as a damsel in distress type of character, sadly. But it's nice that Victoria is being sort of welcomed with open arms with the Doctor and Jamie, and carry on with the Doctor and Jamie's friendship, especially that scene when they go into the tombs together holding hands. That's just quite a sweet, funny moment on top of all this action that's going on in this story. I'll move on to the supporting cast for this story, and they're very much lifted out of, for me, a 1950s B movie or horror movie. We have Kaftan and Klieg, who are clearly the supervillains. Spoiler alert, they are the villains, they're the traitors amongst this group. And Klieg, especially for me, is like a failed Bond villain. He's the one that's trying to mastermind resurrecting the Cybermen, and with their power and his intelligence, they will create a new world order, and it just fails miserably because the cyber control, as I mentioned earlier, just all about survival. And he knows, or the cyber controller knows, that Klieg is just bringing nothing to the table, and he just gets brutally wiped out, murdered by a Cyberman, I think off screen as well. And I like that the Doctor was playing on Klieg's just sort of dominance and power, and sort of like, I am going to be the Superman of the Cybermen and this new world order. And the Doctor just went, well, I know you're mad now, clearly mad. And yeah, it's just a fun sort of villains, really. And Kaftan, she has a henchman called Toberman, and yeah, let's address the elephant in the room for this story. Toberman. Toberman is just a character that just would not fly at all in modern Doctor Who. This is just a character that's very, very dated, very of its time, and yeah, just a big sort of no. He's very much used as a stereotypical black man of a time, and just being this. It would have been fine if he was more of a silent type henchman, but he's not. He's been given some lines, and it's all clearly broken lines, and it just, yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable in one aspect, but on another aspect, I think that Roy Stewart did a very good job with the material that he was given, and he does play this character well. And to be fair, when they were creating this character, they originally had Toberman as a deaf person who was going to have a hearing aid, and at the last minute they scrapped that. So I can see where there was going kind of with the broken English, but it just, yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable for me. But I do like the character arc that Toberman goes through in this story, being this protector to Kaftan, being converted to a Cyberman. So he was kind of like going into from evil to good, and sacrificing himself and taking on the cyber controller and the Cyberman. And yeah, there is an endearing quality to this character, but at the same time, it's very much of its time, very outdated. And this is the one thing that, for me, just kind of doesn't sit well with Tomb of the Cybermen. We also have Professor Parry, who is the leader of this expedition, and the more things go wrong, lots of people dying as they're going through all these traps laid out by the Cybermen, the more less and less in charge he is. And, he's trying to return back to the rocket ship and cancel this expedition, and everyone's just not listening to him, and all he has to do is just sit and watch all this destruction and death play out. We also have two pilots of the rocket ship, and I'm not sure which one it was, either Callum or Hopper, but they very much reminded me of like a 1950s comic strip, like Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon, just in their sort of way of talking. It's very much like a sort of, action hero from the 50s comic book. You are not, no one's gonna set one foot on my rocket ship, and you stay here, Vic. We need to protect the women. It just made me laugh. I'm going to give the Tomb of the Cybermen a Tardis rating of 7.5 out of 10. This is just a fun 4-part adventure, just action-packed. I think Maurice Barry, who was the director for this story, did a really good job and just had that eye of capturing the sort of movie style adventure that he was going for on film, mixing it from film to sets, and it just gave this story this extra scope. I love how Maurice Barry, in a presentation that was part of the video release, which is also on the DVD extras, how he talked about the violence in this story, and he wanted this great sort of action scene where Toberman beats up a Cyberman and all this goo comes out. And I think he got into trouble. I'm pretty sure he got into trouble with the level of violence that was going on in this story. And, the characters are memorable. Obviously Toberman, a little bit questionable, obviously, but they do have a quality and charm of their own, and coupled with the Cybermen, it just plays to the Cybermen's strengths, with the story and the characters, and it's the fleshed out characters, for the most part, and that was quite refreshing to see. There's clearly are questionable effects, especially in the action fighting scenes, where you can clearly see Toberman has a wire on his back, so the Cyberman can lift him up, barely touching him. I think he's sort of like fingertips touching him to throw him onto the ground. And there was a scene where Toberman picks up the cyber controller, goes off screen, comes out back on screen, clearly holding a dummy, where when he throws him onto the control panel, I'm sure the cyber controller's head falls off. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It adds to the charm to this story. It's basically, for me, it's a B movie style 50s horror / action film, and it's kind of just a homage to that, mixed with a Doctor Who story that just adds to the legacy of Doctor Who. If anything, this video is a tribute to all the dedicated people who are out there searching for these lost episodes and stories of 1960s Doctor Who. Are we going to get a complete set of these stories in all its original glory? I don't think so, to be honest, but it's never say never, because we have nothing for years, and then boom, a few years ago we got The Web of Fear and The Enemy of the World, and it's great to have them. It's we're very lucky as Whovians and fans of Doctor Who to have these people that are just dedicated into finding these lost stories, and if anything, have the fortitude and foreknowledge to record these stories on audio in their own homes. Otherwise we wouldn't have had any recordings of this, so at least we've got like the audio form of these adventures, and obviously have the reanimated versions of these stories thanks to the original audio recordings. So if anything, I salute you. Thank you for your dedication and hard work, and I know that's still going on today. I know there's quite a few people out in the hunt for these lost episodes and stories. And yeah, just a massive thank you. Carry on doing what you're doing. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts to the Tomb of the Cybermen. Is this your favourite story or episode to feature the Cybermen? If not, what is? And also, which story from the 60s would you like to see return to its former glory? For me personally, I'm hoping for the Daleks' Master Plan, but which one is your story that you want to see back in its original glory? Next time on Timey Wimey Review will be Volume 2 of my best and worst Doctor Who cliffhangers video. Until then, thank you very much for watching. I really do hope you've enjoyed this review. Please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that cloister bell for more notifications. But as the good doctor once said, nobody in the universe can do what we're doing.